My name is Emma Sullivan. I'm 32 years old, and up until that moment, I thought I was living the perfect life. Married to David Sullivan, a successful corporate lawyer living in a beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn Heights that we'd spent 3 years renovating together. I ran a small but thriving interior design business from our home office. We'd been trying for a baby for the past year. I was the perfect wife. And apparently, I was also the perfect fool. My hands shook as I stared at the receipt. Le Bernardin wasn't just expensive, it was romantic. It was the kind of place you took someone when you wanted to impress them, when you wanted to seduce them. David had never taken me there. I heard his key in the front door and quickly shoved the receipt back into his jacket. My heart hammered against my ribs as I listened to him hang up his coat, the same coat that had just shattered my world. You home?" His voice carried up from the foyer, warm and familiar. The same voice that had whispered, "I love you," in my ear this morning before leaving for work. "In the kitchen," I called back, proud of how steady my voice sounded. He appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie with one hand while scrolling through his phone with the other. Still handsome at 35, with that easy smile that had made me fall for him 8 years ago in law school. "How was your day?" he asked, barely looking up from his screen. "Fine." I watched his face carefully. "How was yours? You got home pretty late last night." "Brutal. Henderson case is killing me." He finally looked up, and for just a second I thought I saw something flicker across his features. Guilt, fear, but it passed so quickly I might have imagined it. You know how it is with the big clients, they expect miracles. Lies came so easily to him, smooth as silk wrapped in that charming smile. "I saved you dinner," I said. "Want me to heat it up?" "Already ate," grabbed something at the office. Another lie served with a kiss on my forehead. "I'm exhausted, going to shower and crash." I watched him walk away, this man I'd built my entire adult life around, this man I'd trusted with everything I had, this man who was apparently living a double life so seamlessly that I'd never suspected a thing. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while David slept soundly beside me. His breathing was deep and even, the sleep of someone with a clear conscience, or maybe just someone who'd gotten really good at compartmentalizing. I thought about the receipt, about all the late nights that had become more frequent over the past 6 months, about how he'd started guarding his phone, taking it with him even to the bathroom, about how he'd seemed distracted during our anniversary dinner last month, checking messages under the table. All the signs had been there. I'd just been too trusting, too stupid to see them, but I saw them now. The next morning, David left for work with his usual kiss goodbye and his usual promise to try to make it home for dinner. I waited until I heard his car pull out of the driveway, then I got to work. I wasn't just going to confront him. I wasn't going to scream and cry and demand explanations that would only result in more lies. I was going to find out exactly what I was dealing with first, and then I was going to destroy him. I started with his credit card statements. David handled most of our finances, claiming he was better with numbers. I'd never questioned it, another mistake in a long list of mistakes. But I had access to our joint account online, and what I found there made my blood run cold. Le Bernardin wasn't an isolated incident. There were charges at expensive restaurants, boutique hotels, jewelry stores, all on days when he'd told me he was working late or traveling for business. The pattern went back 8 months. 8 months of lies, 8 months of betrayal. 8 months of me playing the devoted wife while he played house with someone else. I printed everything, every receipt, every statement, every transaction that didn't match his cover stories. The evidence pile grew thick enough to choke on. Next, I called his office. "David Sullivan's office, this is Michelle." "Hi, Michelle, this is Emma, David's wife. I was wondering if you could help me with something." "Of course, Mrs. Sullivan. What can I do for you?" "I'm trying to plan a surprise for David, but I need to work around his travel schedule. Could you send me his calendar for the past few months, just so I know when he's been out of town?" "Oh, that's so sweet. Let me pull that up for you." 10 minutes later, my email dinged with David's official calendar. I cross-referenced it with the credit card charges. The discrepancies were glaring. Charges in the city on days when his calendar said he was in Boston. Romantic dinners on nights when he was supposedly in client meetings. My husband wasn't just a cheater, he was a methodical, calculating liar. I spent the next 3 days gathering intelligence like I was planning a military operation. I hired a private investigator, not to confirm what I already knew, but to get photographic evidence and identify his accomplice. I consulted with a divorce attorney, quietly transferring copies of all our financial documents to a secure cloud account David couldn't access. The PI called me on Friday afternoon. "Mrs. Sullivan, I have what you need." We met at a coffee shop in Dumbo, far from anywhere David might accidentally show up. The investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Sarah Chen, slid a manila envelope across the table. "Her name is Jessica Martinez," Sarah said without preamble. 26 years old, works at Morrison and Associates. That's the investment firm in David's building. They've been meeting regularly for the past 8 months, usually at hotels during lunch, sometimes for dinner after work. I opened the envelope with steady hands. The photos were damning. David and a stunning brunette entering a hotel together, kissing in his car. Her hand on his chest as they laughed over dinner at some trendy restaurant I'd never been to. She was everything I wasn't. Young, exotic, probably uncomplicated. No doubt she hung on his every word and made him feel like the successful, powerful man he wanted to be. "There's more," Sarah continued. I followed her home. She lives in a luxury apartment in Tribeca, way above what someone her age and position should be able to afford. He's paying for it, most likely. The lease is in her name, but the rent payments are coming from an account linked to a credit card in David's name, a card that's not on any of your joint statements. Of course, he had a secret credit card, probably a secret bank account too. My perfect husband had built an entire secret life funded by money that should have been ours. What else do you need to know? Sarah asked. Everything, I said. I want to know her routine, her weaknesses, her vulnerabilities. I want to know where she works, who her friends are, what makes her tick. I want to know everything about her life that David has become a part of. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Planning something specific? Justice, I said simply. That weekend, David went through the motions of being a loving husband. He took me to brunch, held my hand across the table, talked about plans for remodeling the guest bathroom, all while his phone buzzed with messages he thought I couldn't see. I played along, smiled at his jokes, laughed at his stories, discussed paint colors for a room in a house I knew I'd be leaving soon. I was getting good at compartmentalizing too. Sunday night, while David was in the shower, I did something I'd never done before. I went through his phone. His passcode was my birthday, a cruel irony that made me want to laugh and scream at the same time. The messages between David and Jessica were nauseating in their intimacy. Pet names, inside jokes, plans for a weekend getaway to the Hamptons. But it was the older messages that really gutted me. Messages from last spring when I'd been struggling with a difficult client and David had been so supportive, so understanding. Can't wait to get away from all the drama at home, he'd texted Jessica. Em's been such a nightmare lately. Poor baby, she'd replied, you deserve so much better. They'd been mocking me, pitying me, making fun of my struggles while I'd been grateful for his support. That was the moment something inside me shifted permanently. The last vestige of love, of hope for reconciliation, died completely. What replaced it was cold, calculating fury. I screenshotted everything. Every message, every photo, every declaration of love that he'd never made to me anymore. I saved it all to my secure cloud account, building a digital arsenal that would destroy him when the time came. Monday morning, I put my plan into motion. I started with Jessica's workplace. Morrison and Associates had a sleek website with employee profiles. Jessica Martinez, junior investment analyst, fresh-faced and ambitious according to her bio. Graduated from NYU with honors, specialized in portfolio management for high-net-worth clients. Perfect, that gave me everything I needed. I crafted an email using a fake account, posing as a potential client who'd been referred to Jessica by a mutual friend. I expressed interest in investment services and suggested we meet for lunch to discuss my portfolio. Jessica responded within an hour, eager and professional. We arranged to meet at a restaurant in Midtown, nowhere near David's office. While I waited for that meeting, I made other preparations. I opened my own bank account and began quietly transferring money from our joint accounts. Not enough to trigger alerts, but enough to secure my immediate future. I consulted with my divorce attorney again, finalizing strategy. I researched Manhattan real estate, looking for a small apartment I could afford on my own income. I was methodically dismantling my life with David while he remained completely oblivious. The night before my lunch with Jessica, David came home with flowers, gilt roses. I now recognized them as. He was working late again the next day. He told me, big client meeting. That's fine, I said, arranging the roses in a vase. I have lunch plans tomorrow anyway. Oh yeah, with who? Just a potential client, nothing exciting. He nodded absently, already scrolling through his phone. Probably making plans with Jessica for their evening together. I met Jessica Martinez at a trendy bistro in Midtown. She was even prettier in person, glossy hair, perfect makeup, designer clothes that definitely cost more than my entire wardrobe. She carried herself with the confidence of a woman who'd never questioned her own desirability. Emma, she stood as I approached her table, extending a manicured hand. I'm Jessica. So nice to meet you. The pleasure's mine, I said, shaking her hand and studying her face. This was the woman my husband preferred to me. This was the woman he'd chosen over 8 years of marriage, over the life we'd built together. She was beautiful, I had to admit. But there was something calculated about her charm, something practiced in the way she smiled and tilted her head when she spoke. She was performing femininity and she was good at it. We ordered drinks and made small talk about the weather, the restaurant, the city. Jessica was charming and professional, clearly good at her job. I could see why David was attracted to her. She had that polished, ambitious energy that successful men seem to crave. So, she said, pulling out a tablet, tell me about your investment goals. What kind of portfolio are you looking to build? Well, I said, settling back in my chair, it's a bit complicated. I'm going through a divorce, you see. My husband has been unfaithful and I need to make sure I'm financially secure when everything falls apart. Something flickered across Jessica's face, surprise, maybe a hint of discomfort, but she recovered quickly. I'm sorry to hear that, she said smoothly. Divorce can definitely complicate financial planning. But we can absolutely help you establish an independent portfolio. The thing is, I continued, watching her carefully, I've discovered my husband has been hiding assets, secret accounts, undisclosed expenses. It's made me realize how naive I've been about our finances. Jessica's smile remained fixed, but I saw her swallow hard. That must be very difficult, she said. Financial deception can be incredibly damaging to a marriage. Oh, it's not just financial, I said casually, taking a sip of my wine. There's another woman involved, someone young and beautiful and completely without morals, the kind of woman who would sleep with a married man and help him lie to his wife. The color drained from Jessica's face, her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. I'm not sure I understand, she stammered. I think you understand perfectly, Jessica. I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. I know about you and David. I know about the apartment he's paying for, the dinners, the hotel rooms. I know about all of it. She stared at me trapped. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how to respond, deny it, run away, pretend she didn't know David was married. He told me you were separated, she finally whispered. No, he didn't. I kept my voice calm, almost conversational. He told you whatever he needed to tell you to get you into bed, but he never told you we were separated because we weren't. We aren't. I'm still sleeping in his bed every night, Jessica. I'm still cooking his dinner and doing his laundry and playing the perfect wife while he plays house with you. Tears started forming in her eyes. Good, let her feel a fraction of the pain she'd helped inflict. I didn't know, she said desperately. I swear I didn't know. Yes, you did. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to one of the screenshots I'd taken from David's messages. You knew exactly what you were doing. I turned the screen toward her, showing her David's text about getting away from drama at home and her response about him deserving better. You knew I existed, I continued. You just didn't care, you wanted what you wanted, and my marriage was an acceptable casualty. Jessica covered her face with her hands. Oh God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. No, you're not yet, but you will be. I signaled the waiter for the check. Here's what's going to happen, Jessica. You're going to end it with David today, right now. You're going to send him a text breaking up with him, and then you're going to block his number. But I'm not finished. My voice cut through her protest like ice. If you don't do exactly what I'm telling you, I'm going to make sure everyone in your life knows exactly what kind of person you are. I'll send these messages to your boss, your coworkers, your family. I'll post them on social media with your full name and workplace. I'll make sure that when people Google Jessica Martinez, the first thing they see is proof that you're a home-wrecking whore. She flinched at the word, but I felt no sympathy. You have a choice, I continued. End it quietly and keep your reputation intact, or drag this out and watch your entire life implode. What's it going to be? Jessica stared at me with something approaching fear. This wasn't how she'd imagined this story would go. She'd probably thought she was the main character, the young woman who'd stolen the heart of a powerful man. She'd never considered that the wife might fight back. I'll end it, she whispered. Do it now, I said. Send the text. With shaking hands, Jessica typed out a message to David. I watched her compose and delete several versions before settling on something brief and final. This isn't working anymore. Don't contact me again. Send it, I ordered. She hit send, then immediately blocked his number as I'd instructed. Good girl, I said, standing up. Now here's the other part. If David tries to contact you through other means, you're going to ignore him. If he shows up at your office or your apartment, you're going to call security. If he tries to use mutual friends or colleagues to reach you, you're going to shut that down immediately. Are we clear? She nodded mutely. And Jessica, if I find out you've had any contact with my husband after today, our conversation will become very public very quickly. Do you understand? Yes, she whispered. I threw a 20 on the table to cover my wine and walked away without looking back. One down now for David. I drove home with a strange sense of calm. The first phase of my plan was complete. David's afternoon delight had just been permanently canceled, and he had no idea why. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when my phone buzzed with a text from David, running late tonight. Client dinner ran long, I smiled grimly. He was probably frantically trying to reach Jessica, confused by her sudden silence. Let him wonder, let him panic. By the time David finally came home that night, he looked haggard. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie askew. He'd clearly been having a very bad day. Hey, he said, kissing my cheek distractedly. Sorry I'm so late. How was the client dinner? I asked innocently. Fine, good, really good, actually. The lies came automatically, but I could hear the strain in his voice. I served him dinner and watched him pick at his food while checking his phone obsessively. Jessica wasn't responding to whatever messages he was sending, and it was eating him alive. Everything okay? I asked. You seem distracted. Just work stuff, he said, not looking up from his phone. Big case, lots of moving pieces. Anything I can help with? For a moment, he looked at me like he'd forgotten I existed. No, it's fine. I just need to make some calls. He disappeared into his office for the rest of the evening. I could hear him on the phone, his voice growing increasingly agitated as the night wore on, calling Jessica's work line, probably, maybe trying to reach her through mutual contacts. Good, let him chase shadows. The next morning, David was a wreck, dark circles under his eyes, coffee-stained shirt, the frantic energy of a man whose carefully constructed world was falling apart. I have to run some errands today, he announced over breakfast. Might be late again tonight. He was going to Jessica's apartment, I realized, going to demand answers in person. That's fine, I said. I have errands to run too. My errands involved meeting with a locksmith and an electrician. By the time David returned from his unsuccessful mission to win back Jessica, the locks on our house would be changed and a security system would be installed. But that was just the appetizer. The main course was still coming. I spent that afternoon putting the finishing touches on my plan, photos printed and organized, financial documents copied and distributed. Legal papers filed and ready to serve. David returned home that evening in an even worse state than the night before, desperate, confused, probably starting to realize that Jessica's sudden disappearance wasn't a coincidence. "We need to talk," he said as soon as he walked in the door. "Do we?" I was folding laundry in the living room, projecting perfect domestic tranquility. "Am I?" He ran his hands through his hair. "Something weird is happening. Someone at work, someone I was friendly with, has suddenly gone dark, and I'm worried that maybe someone is trying to sabotage my career." Friendly with, even now he couldn't bring himself to tell the truth. "That sounds paranoid, David. Why would anyone want to sabotage your career?" "I don't know, but this person, they just disappeared, won't return calls, blocked my number. It's like they've been threatened or something." I set down the shirt I was folding and looked at him directly for the first time in days. "David," I said calmly, "do you have something to tell me?" He stared at me and I watched the calculation happening behind his eyes. How much did I know? How much could he get away with? What story would work best? "I don't know what you mean," he said finally. Wrong answer. I walked to the kitchen and returned with a manila folder. I set it on the coffee table between us and watched his face as he realized what it contained. I found the receipt David Le Bernardin and then I found all the others. His face went white. I can explain." "No," I said firmly. "You can't. There is no explanation for 8 months of lies. There is no explanation for the secret credit card, the hotel rooms, the jewelry you bought for another woman with money from our joint account." I opened the folder and spread the evidence across the coffee table like a hand of cards. Credit card statements, restaurant receipts, hotel bills, photographs of him with Jessica. I know about Jessica Martinez. I know about the apartment you're paying for in Tribeca. I know about every lie you've told me, every excuse you've made, every time you looked me in the eye and made me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong." David sank into the chair across from me, his head in his hands. "How long have you known?" he asked quietly. "Does it matter? What matters is that I know, and now you need to decide how you want this to go." He looked up at me, hope flickering in his eyes. Can we work through this? Counseling, maybe? I know I messed up, but David." I kept my voice gentle, almost pitying. "You didn't mess up. You built an entire second life. You funded it with our money. You mocked me to your mistress. You made me question my own sanity when I asked simple questions about your whereabouts." I leaned forward, making sure he was listening. "This isn't a mistake. This is who you are. And I'm done pretending otherwise." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I've already filed for divorce. The papers will be served to you at your office tomorrow morning. I'm saying I've documented every financial transaction, every lie, every piece of evidence that proves you've been defrauding our marriage. I'm saying that when we go to court, the judge is going to see exactly what kind of man you are." David's face cycled through shock, anger, and something approaching panic. "You can't do this," he said. "Half of everything we own is mine, the house, the business, all of it." "Actually," I said, pulling out another set of documents, "you'll find that's not quite true. You see, when you opened that secret credit card and started hiding assets, you committed fraud. When you used marital funds to support another woman, you violated your fiduciary duty to our marriage. My lawyer is very confident that the court will award me a significantly larger portion of our assets as compensation for your misconduct." The color drained from his face completely. "But here's the best part," I continued. "I'm not just taking you to divorce court. I'm also reporting your financial misconduct to the State Bar Association. Lawyers who commit fraud tend to have trouble keeping their licenses. And without your license, David, what exactly are you qualified to do? You're bluffing." "Am I?" I stood up and walked to the window. "Your law firm represents several high-profile clients who care very much about their reputation. What do you think happens to your partnership track when they find out you're embroiled in a fraud investigation? What happens when your colleagues discover you've been using firm resources to conduct an affair?" I turned back to face him. "Oh, did I mention I also know you've been using your work computer to email Jessica, using the conference room for personal calls, even took her to the firm's holiday party last year and introduced her as a family friend." That last detail was a guess, but the look on David's face confirmed it was accurate. "You're destroying my life," he whispered. "No, David, you destroyed your life. I'm just making sure everyone else can see it." I gathered the papers from the coffee table and headed toward the stairs. "Where are you going?" he called after me. "To pack. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. The locks have been changed and the security system has been activated. I'd suggest you find somewhere else to stay too. This is my house." "Actually," I said, pausing on the stairs, "it's my house. I bought it with inheritance money from my grandmother, remember? It was never marital property. My lawyer was very clear about that." I continued upstairs, leaving David alone with the wreckage of his carefully constructed lies. The next morning, I watched from across the street as a process server entered David's office building. By noon, my phone was ringing constantly with calls from his number that I ignored. He sent increasingly desperate text messages that I screenshotted for my attorney. "Please call me. We can work this out. You're making a huge mistake. I love you, Em. I've always loved you. Don't do this to us." The us was particularly rich, considering there hadn't been an us for 8 months. 3 days later, I got a call from David's law firm. He'd been placed on administrative leave pending an ethics investigation. A week later, Jessica quit her job and moved to Los Angeles. Word from my pie was that David tried to follow her, but she shut that door fast. The divorce was swift and brutal. His lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, but the evidence spoke for itself. I walked away with the house, 70% of our assets, and 3 years of alimony. He paid all my legal fees. His fall didn't stop there. The firm forced him out, friends distanced themselves, and his family cut contact. 6 months after the divorce, his law license was suspended. Last I heard, he was a paralegal in Jersey, living in a studio in Queens, drinking too much and earning next to nothing. I felt nothing. A year later, I ran into him at a cafe in Brooklyn Heights. He looked worn out, thinner, suit rumpled, eyes dim. His face lit up when he saw me. He said softly, you look amazing. I did. I'd built a new life, bought an apartment in Manhattan, and my business was thriving. David, I know I don't deserve it, but could we talk? Maybe dinner? I've changed. I looked at the man who once made me question everything about myself. And I told him the truth. You didn't just cheat, you stole years from me, time I could have spent being happy, trusting someone who deserved it. He flinched. For Jessica, was she worth it? She left you the second things got real. I made a mistake. No, David, you made a choice every day for 8 months. I stood to leave. I don't hate you, but I don't forgive you either. What you did was unforgivable. Then I smiled slightly. Oh, and David, I'm engaged. His face fell. His name S. Michael. He treats me like I matter. We're getting married this spring. I walked out, leaving him alone with the consequences of his choices. 2 years later, on my wedding morning, sunlight streamed through the windows of our apartment. My dress hung by the door. My mother's card sat beside the bouquet. A text from an unknown number buzzed on my phone. Saw the wedding announcement. Congratulations, you deserve happiness. I deleted it without a second thought. Michael appeared in the doorway, grinning. Ready, Mrs. Chen? Ready, I said, taking his hand. As we drove to the venue, I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who found a receipt and thought her world had ended. She hadn't broken, she had risen. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's building a life so full, so peaceful that your betrayer can only watch from the outside, knowing they'll never be invited in. David thought he was trading up. Instead, he lost everything real for someone who vanished the second things turned real. And me, I won everything.